Hi, I'm Chris West. Thanks for joining me for another one of my double bass technique videos. In this instalment, I'm going to give you a super secure fingering that works for all major scales. All you have to do is choose the fingering for the first two notes and off you go. I'm going to give you a fingering for 1 octave and 2 octave scales. And for those of you who are comfortable in thumb position, 3 octave scales too. When we first start to learn scales, we play the ones with open strings, so that we don't have to shift very much. But if you use open strings, you have to learn a different fingering for every scale. By the time you're playing all your scales, it's better to have a single go-to fingering that works for every scale. And for 1 octave major scales, that fingering is 1-4-2-4, 1-4-2-4. You play 1-4, then you shift your hand up a tone and a half so that your first finger is a semitone beyond where your fourth finger just was, and play 2-4. Now shift a semitone back and repeat what you did on the next string up. So there you have a fingering that works starting on any note on the bass. B flat, E, eventually you have to start using a 3 at the top instead of the 4, but it's basically the same thing. G, if it starts on the G string, you need to shift up the string instead of doing the semitone shift back. A flat. These scales come up all the time in so many types of music. I'm not saying there won't ever be a better fingering in certain circumstances, but having this option at your fingertips, literally, means you can save your brain the trouble of working out a new fingering every time. You can use this fingering for a shorter section of a major scale. And with different fingers, the basic shifts will work for lots of other modal scales, melodic minor, natural minor, and so on. So I really recommend practicing this fingering until you can do it accurately in your sleep or while you're talking. It's probably the most useful chunk you will ever learn. You may have noticed that our 1 octave fingering sometimes takes us further up the A string than we really want to go. If we play A flat major, I don't really want to get all the way up here. The solution is to start with a spring back fingering. I've done a whole video on spring backs which you might like to take a look at. But the idea is I shift a semitone back from A flat to B flat and then immediately return to where I was. Now I'm back on track and I can finger the rest of the scale as before. 2-4, 1-4-2-4. It's a very secure fingering. The dotted line indicates that that one note is a semitone shift away from the other notes under the bracket. So I can use that fingering for A flat major and maybe D flat major. I could use it for A natural and D too, but as I explained in my video on the open string rule, we shouldn't stop those notes if it causes us an extra string crossing. So I'm going to begin those scales open 1. But I can use that spring back start for any scale starting on a 4. And it's especially useful for all the second octaves of our 2 octave major scales. Remember, we've always ended the first octave on a 4. So as long as we haven't got to the top string yet, we can put in a spring back at that point to get back on track to play the second octave with the same fingering for major scales that we've already practiced. And it's exactly the same on the way down. Notice how I pause on the tonic each time. I think that's a good way of splitting the scale into manageable chunks for your brain. You don't want to be thinking about individual notes, but playing a whole 2-octave scale is too big a chunk for your brain to deal with in one go. 8 notes per chunk is perfect, and it will help you to recognise where the pattern stays the same and where you have to do something different. So as I promised at the start of the video, we've got one fingering that works for all our 2-octave major scales up to D flat. We've made that possible by using springbacks. All you need to do now is remember how you're going to finger the first 2 notes, and then everything afterwards will be the same. If you need to add on another octave at the top, you can use this fingering, all on the G string, as long as you can play the top 3 notes in a diatonic hand shape. Traditionally we use this shape for A, B, C or higher, but some people will find it first becomes possible either in a lower or a higher position than that. Remember, we've already got a fingering up to D flat, so as long as B, C sharp, D feels comfortable, then you're good to go. Now I've got loads I could say about shifting in thumb position, but that's all in my book, Reaching the Heights, a guide to thumb position on the double bass, which is available from Amazon as a book or for Kindle. Remember, there's a free Kindle app for every platform. So for the moment, I'm going to leave it there. I hope that by showing you one fingering that works for all your major scales, this video has helped you learn them more quickly and play them more accurately. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. Bye for now.